to come together tonight. We pray that as we study and as we look into your word and as we consider your ways and your will, that you will bless us and that you will take care of us. In Jesus' name, amen. So tonight we're on the number 19 of our Zeal book, Mentoring Your Replacement. We're going to be going through this, and as I went through it several times, I was going, boy, I just didn't feel like there was lots I thought was going to be done pretty quickly. So we're going to go through it, and then if we're done early, which I think we will be, I'm going to have another brief topic that I'll pass out a handout, and we'll go from there. But the basis of the class is based on 2 Timothy 2, verse 2, where Paul says, "The things which you have heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, entrust to these faithful men who will be able to teach others also." So this is how Christianity works. You learn about Christianity, and then you go teach somebody else, and then they learn better or learn the concepts about God, and then they pass it to somebody else. It's like spread like a cold virus there, sending out into the world. God knew that system was going to allow people to hear the gospel better than just saying, okay, we're going to have one mountaintop and everybody's going to have to come to the mountaintop. Instead, he set up a process that we each share the gospel with others. And so this person's point, this author's point is that concept, that we can turn that into purposeful instead of just accidental. Mentoring to me is a purposeful process where you take somebody alongside and you show them the ropes, or you help them become more comfortable with the process. And we do that at our work situation. When we hire somebody new, then one of the turners will have to take them and show them the ropes. So all the turners did work with me at times through there, and Ross got a little bit concerned sometimes about having to show the new people stuff. It got him a little stressed until he figured out he was pretty good at it, and he could show them those things, and they did really well with his mentoring, with his ability to show them how to do the things and give them a little advice at times without being overbearing, those kinds of things. So some of us that I've seen other people be good at that, of taking somebody alongside. And so this lesson is about the question, are you ready to do that? Are you ready to take somebody alongside of you and say, you know what I know, I'm going to help show you, come with me, let's go encourage that person right beside you. In this warm-up, it has Philippians 4:9. So let's read that on the little right-hand side there, warming up, 4:9, where Paul says, "The things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace shall be with you." So Paul called on them to do the things that they had done. One of the things that Paul had done, and one of those things he told them in 1 Corinthians chapter 11, in verse 1, "Be imitators of me as I also am of Christ." So we're to follow what Paul taught us as he's imitating Christ. Did Jesus mentor anybody? The apostles is the example that this author uses as one of the best examples of mentoring in the Bible. And I agree with him. Jesus they didn't understand all these things that Jesus knew. And so he had to bring them along and teach them these things. Did they learn it perfectly? No, because we find that out in different ways. And what did Jesus do after he left? I have to go to the Father so he can send the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, and he will guide you into all truth. So even when he left, they still hadn't got it all. But that was the process that Jesus used, was to bring them alongside and teach them as they were going. As they're walking along and they're pulling grain off of the, gleaning off of the fields, he's teaching them. As they're sitting there in a boat, he's teaching them. So this is what we have to decide. Are we going to do that? Are we going to put ourselves out there and imitate Paul as he was imitating Christ? It's a big question sometimes. What are the things you'd have to risk if you do that? What are you risking to be a mentor? Anything? No risk at all. Your time. I could spend my time doing something else. If I put this time in and the person doesn't help anything, I've just wasted this time. What else? some friendship. What if you start to do this and they go, you know what, thanks anyway, but no thanks. Those kinds of things, you are taking some risk to volunteer for that, to say, this is something that I think would be useful and helpful in my Christian life. Because we all, whether we had a formal mentor or not, which I think that's one of the things I kind of stepped back from on this when I went, we don't have any mentors. There's no the office of mentor in the Bible. There isn't one, but it's the concept and it's the example that we see. And so, not everyone has that. Not everyone's necessarily told to do it that way, but we each have skills and abilities. So as we go through this, think about that. How are we going to get this information about how to follow God to our next generation? How does that happen? You have to teach it. Well, they could read the Bible, couldn't they? Hey, the Bible was just laying there on a bench one day and I went by and I picked it up and I found, hey, there's good stuff in here. And God could still the seed could still bring about growth even without somebody else teaching it. But the plan and the process that he put in place was that it would be taught. Those of you who have been doing it a while, show it to the new person. Even the new person can show to somebody who doesn't know anything. Here's how I became a Christian. Here's why I thought it was an important thing. So that next generation needs us. And it's not necessarily the next generation in age, but there are people that are in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s out there right now who don't know anything about God or what he really wants us to do. So you could be mentoring a person who's twice your age, but it's not bringing along the next generation of age people. It's the next generation of Christians that need us to consider this. One more quick thing on the top of 94 there, just second paragraph. Just as Jesus did, you should identify good candidates to mentor. And I put a little note in there to myself, and get their permission to mentor them. Because I notice the next thing's talking about inspect and inform and involve and intercede and inspire. By the way, I've been inspecting your things here today, and I've decided that you need a little information and I'll get involved in your. Wait a minute, if that's not already understood, that there's, hey, what do you feel about getting together more and having a conversation about some of these things? If you don't have that conversation first, it could be a little awkward when you try mentoring somebody who doesn't know what you're doing or hasn't asked for it, and you start inspecting their work and informing them of where they need to improve. So I read that and I went, okay, make sure you talk to them about it before you jump in. One of the things that I looked at, have you seen an informal mentoring thing where you've been in any life situation? What's an informal mentoring system look like compared to I am the mentor paired with this person?
Somebody comes asking for advice.
Somebody comes to you for your advice and you can, sure, I can do that. I didn't seek it out, but here I am. And so we'll talk about those kinds of things. You don't necessarily have to say, I will now choose to be your mentor in order to do these things. If somebody comes and says, hey, what do you think of this? You can become an informal mentor to that person by helping them in the questions and challenges that we all have in life. What about just taking somebody to coffee where you see that they're struggling with something and you're just going to sit down and talk with them and say how things going? And in that time, maybe they'll open up and maybe they'll say, well, here's what I'm going with. And you can be an informal mentor even though there's no plan that's set up. I will teach you everything I know, my Padawan. Padawan's the Star Wars thing. Okay. All right. So these 5 groups of things, inspect, inform, involve, intercede, and inspire. Which, as you look at them, which do you think is most important? Or is there one that's most important? Oh, Roger, you had something first?
Being involved is really important, but you were talking about just hand them a Bible, and they'll know. But it's not that way, because the example we have for that is Philip. On the road, he met a eunuch that was reading the Bible. He was reading from Isaiah. And Philip asked him a simple question, do you understand what you're reading? And his answer was, how can I unless someone guide me? There is every opportunity in the world to just answer direct questions. What does this mean? What does this mean?
Right.
And that will branch out into maybe a lifetime of study with a good friend.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen that happen.
During COVID, I had
We have to answer those questions.
yeah, good point. It can branch out. And during COVID, I had a couple of folks talk with me about, hey, can we do a study on Revelation? And I'm like, well, there's a lot of other things that we can look at. Yeah, but we really want to look at Revelation. So we opened up Revelation and I tried to pull it back to, here's what it's picturing Jesus in this way, and here's why, and kept trying to go back that direction. They were looking for, where's the world going to end, and and is it Russia, those kinds of things. And it's like, oh, but it was hard to kind of steer that back to what they needed, even though, hey, we're reading the Bible. It was hard to get from those things what they should be doing in their life and how they're going to get closer to God. So good point, Roger. So of those, inspect, inform, involve, intercede. Give me an example of where you've seen that happen in one of these types, where the great coach watching their players and then seeing, hey, I see your shot you're fading away. The ball's in the palm of your hand. You're not taking you're pulling your back foot when you start your basketball move. Coaches have to look at those kinds of things. They have to figure out if there's something there. And this is why I said we notice these things about other people, but again, talking to them about, if I start coming up and saying, I think I'm going to inspect what you're doing, that's going to be a challenge, but it's an important part. If you don't know where people are starting, you don't know how you can help, if you can help, if they need help. Tammy?
For those of you who remember Rosie Reagan, Rosie was a dear lady, and she was not shy about things she heard, or I used to be in a ladies' Bible class for her, and I think I got a phone call from her every week after a class about something I said, and she wanted to clarify and expound on something, or
Yeah.
fine-tune me or something, and that took a lot of courage.
A lot of courage and a lot of knowing what's there in the first place. You had to know, is there a difference from what you were thinking, and then to give you another idea or encourage you to go that direction further. Right, good point. And then that's part of the informing part, I think, too. Detailed explanations of his teaching. That's how Jesus brought along the disciples there, the apostles that became the apostles. He gave them more information than he shared with other people. He spoke in parables to who? To the masses, and especially to the leaderships of the Jewish people. But he didn't speak in parables to his own disciples because they needed that information. So Jesus was very good, the great communicator of giving that information. And then the involving part. Give me an example of when he involved the 12 while he was still on the earth.
He sent them out on a limited commission.
He sent them out, and he said, go and do these things, and don't take this, but take this, and go to the house that says this, and stay there as long as, and they came back inspired, and that was part of that last part. When they saw what was happening and what God was working, how he was working, that inspired them. So he involved them directly. How could we do that with a mentee? Right there, Cindy. How could we do that with somebody that we're trying to involve? Henry?
Discipleship.
Discipleship. Bring them alongside?
Yes.
Okay. In what area?
And particularly those who are new into the church, because they don't have an idea of what goes on in the church, what we're teaching, how we're teaching it. To me, that's probably the biggest.
So in the teaching side, bring them up alongside with that.
And you want to watch them as they learn.
Yeah.
To be able to, equip them with the right things that they may be studying.
That's that inspecting part. Good point. Cindy, you had a comment?
Well, it's kind of in the same line as what Henry just said. If you're teaching someone and they're a babe and say, okay, go and do whatever, and you don't continue with that teaching or involvement with them, they're going to just go off the deep end most of the time.
Yeah.
And then also you can get involved with them in a social aspect also to create more of a friendship
Good point. That's where spending the time concept that we were talking about. It's a risk of time. It's not really a risk because that would be time well spent anyway, but it takes that effort to do that. Good point. So then, interceding, what's the concept that he's given here with this interceding section? When mentors intercede, what is it that they're doing there?
Well, in his example, he was talking about there's things you're going to be confronted with you just don't know how to do and how to handle it. And their example with he showed when they were saying, hey, should you guys pay poll tax or not, or temple tax? And Jesus interceded and said, go get this fish and give it to them and said, and his other times said, render to Caesar what is Caesar's, render to God what is God's, and gave Peter some tools. Instead
of just letting them struggle and try to figure it out themselves, and one person have one idea and one person have another, he shared what the best answer was when he had understood the situation. Okay, so interceding can help. I'm hopeful there won't be lots of times that interceding as a mentor, when I think of it in my office, and you the person you're trying to teach to do this next task, and you see they're about to poke somebody in the eye when they shouldn't, and you have to step in. Oh, just a second, let me take that. This is how we do it differently. I mean, you have to be aware of what's happening and be able to step in and help them or do the task, whatever that is. And so that's part of the mentoring process. But it's something that if we're there for them, we're probably going to help them anyway. If you see the person who's got carrying a load that's just a little too heavy, our natural response is to go over and, whoa, let me help you with that, right? That's what it's talking about. It's not talking about you step back, I'll handle this one. That's not what he's talking about, at least from my perspective. It's, hey, let me get in there and help with that. So that's when you're volunteering to mentor, in this biblical sense, you're volunteering to help with the load at times. Step in and when that's needed.
It's not put specifically in here, but I think also in this place is the kind of the after action report.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I did this and I, was trying to teach somebody that just didn't go so well. Well,
Right.
let's talk about, how you talk, what you said and things and, where you were going and something on that order just to,
I heard.
help them, give them a few other ideas, things to look at, and sometimes all you can do is, and remind them that sometimes all you can do is throw the seed.
Yep. That's sometimes all you can do. I hear the government's good at that after action report. We're going to take this apart and make sure, Randy's not here yet, but he has a lot on those kinds of things.
I think probably one of the best examples of intercession that I think he kind of has in mind here is Barnabas and John Mark. When John blew it and left for whatever reason, and Paul didn't want to take him the second time, and Barnabas interceded for him and said, okay, I'll take him. And apparently he did a really good job with him, because later on, Paul said, he's very valuable to me. So sometimes you have to take a younger person who's maybe made some mistakes, or somebody else is on them about their mistakes, and you understand that their immaturity caused that, and so you step in, intercede for them, protect them, and bring them along.
A good point. And he also.
Excuse me, Mike.
Yeah.
Can you repeat what Dan said so the Zoomers can hear?
Yes, he was talking about when Barnabas interceded with Paul on John's behalf and said, look, he made a mistake, but I'm going to take him with me. And then it must have worked because later on John Mark was valuable to Paul to bring him along with him. So it worked to intercede in this example where Barnabas stepped in. Go ahead, Roger.
I was thinking along the same lines of what Dan was saying there. In my profession, I could almost guarantee you I could teach somebody to run a piece of equipment in 30 minutes, but they wouldn't be an operator. They could move the machine. And sometimes when you're doing that, when then everybody learns from that.
And again, that's what we're trying to do as Christians, right? Is that everybody learns. And so that example of learning to drive the heavy equipment, it's got some consequences if it's not done right. And so sometimes you got to step in. And in the same way, I mean, there are consequences of how we treat other people, and having somebody step in and help you avoid that problem, I'm sure the person will be happy that you're there and able to do that. And again, part of it is you got to be there to be alongside of them to do that. If you don't know where they're at, how can you do that? So that spending time together is one of those important things. And then the inspiring part, this author's point is that effective mentors speak consistently and persuasively about the success that they see. And it's not false praise. That's not what he's saying that we should do. Oh, you're so good. It's just sometimes when the parents are in the little kids' games that I would see, and I would say, "Oh, Johnny, you did great on that one." Well, Johnny tried, but he didn't really do that great. And so sometimes the kids know that. And so false praise, "Hey, Johnny, you tried really hard at that. That is awesome. I love your hustle." That's can be real. You can find positive things to bring that. Nobody wants to be, when they're already in a tough situation, nobody wants to be told how bad they're doing. They'll probably figure that out themselves, or how something didn't go the way we wanted it to go. So that positive, inspiring type of personality, who doesn't want to be around a Barnabas that Dan was talking about, right? Like that encourager, that guy who knows you can do better. I'm going to help you. Let's come on. And that's what we can be. Maybe that's not our personality to be that outgoingly, finding the person we don't really know and do that to, but we can do that for somebody. Sam.
I used to have a rule of thumb for praising people, for encouraging somebody. That was the 3 S's. Be specific.
Specific.
Be sincere.
Sincere.
Do it soon.
And soon for when you're offering praise for others. Good point. Right after it's happened, make sure it's there, not 6 weeks later, 6 months later. Hey, you did a good job back there. That doesn't work as well.
What was the third one?
Soon after, while it's happening, or right at the time. We in our office have a thing called kudos, which I keep trying to get our crew to use, because what I'm trying to show them is that 95% of the things in the day go well. Good things happen. But we always seem to dwell on the 5% or 2% or 1% for that day that didn't go well. Oh, this happened. Well, yeah, but how many things happened right? Look at this, look at that. And I'm trying to get them to recognize that many, many, many things that we interact with each day in our Christian life or in that work life, many of those things go well. So point those out to other people when you're seeing that, and you'll help them out in their Christian walk. You'll inspire them to keep after it, because some people lose heart. When things don't go as well as they'd hoped, well, I guess I'm not good at that, and they just kind of give up. So your praise, your seeing the good that's happening may be the difference in them stepping forward the next time. So that inspiration doesn't have to be a college basketball coach inspiring the team to victory. It can just be a word and a positive comment in passing sometimes. So, bottom line, Jesus picked those 12 to receive special attention and training. So he invested 3 years on the earth doing this. How much are we willing to invest in our fellow Christians, in folks who we know could use those things? It's a matter of, am I going to take away things from over here and put that over here, because we all have the same amount of time during a day, and how are we going to spend it? Do we want to spend that time in bringing others alongside?
Well, and Jesus wasn't 100% successful.
Yeah, good point. He
So just because you can be the world's greatest mentor, but if the person isn't interested in being menteed, even after 3 years, it can fail.
as an example of the greatest teacher of all, communicator of all time, still lost the one that was prophesied. And then he still had people within his own group who missed what he was saying and had challenges, and because we're people. So we will have that happen. As we go through a couple of questions here, I wanted to, number 5 was a little weird for me. Who do you believe is already watching and imitating you? Like, uh-oh. Aha! I thought baby May myself.
Yeah, probably kids.
Whether you want them to or not, our kids are. And whether it's not your kid, maybe it's the kid that's coming with other parents, and they're watching you too, to see how you respond. How do you respond in the class, and how do you take care of things that need to be taken care of? So we all have opportunity. So be aware that whether you think I haven't officially got a mentee. Well, there are other people who are watching. It may not be the children, it may be the person sitting next to you. So this has got me to the next section here, Titus 2. So let's go over and look at Titus 2. And this is what happened to me when I was doing Titus 2. I got to Titus 1, and we'll talk about that in just a second. But in Titus 2, he has us read those first 8 verses. Speak the things which are fitting for sound doctrine. Older men, be temperate, dignified, sensible, sound in the faith, in love and perseverance. Older women, likewise, be reverent in their behavior, not malicious gossips or enslaved to much wine, teaching what is good, that they may encourage the young women to love their husbands and to love their children. So who do the younger women mentor in that verse? They've got their children who are looking up to them. So the older women who've been through it, they're there for there should be as much as we can. And verse 5, to be sensible and pure and workers at home, kind, and being subject to their own husbands, that the word of God may not be dishonored. Likewise, urging the young men to be sensible, in all things showing yourself to be a good example of good deeds with purity and doctrine and dignified. Sound in speech, which is beyond reproach, in order that the opponent may be put to shame, having nothing bad to say about us. And then talked about bondslaves after that. And so who did it talked about young men, young women, old men, and old women. Older men and older women. Who did it miss? Kids maybe, but they're the ones that they're going to learn as they're going along, right? So it pretty much caught everybody else. So all of us in this are supposed to be bringing others along and helping them and what we can. Now, again, some people are really good at this, and some people, it's harder for them to reach out and do that. So God is giving us this example, though, of what the goal is, what the ideal is, so we can all be reaching toward that goal. Any more comments on mentoring? Anybody else have any thoughts as they were going through that struck them as an interesting process of mentoring? If not, we got Roger.
I was thinking about this the other day, my relationship with my son. He's struggled with his faith for a while, and throughout this whole portion of our lives, he's all of a sudden now taken an interest in things that we have talked about, and he's finding these things to me, and it's a relationship now that's going in the direction I want to go. And I wasn't even really aware of it, but it's the consistency that Cindy and I have shown throughout the years of being Christians that they've seen as something in our lives that keeps us anchored. And they see that. Mm-hmm. But it's starting to work now because we just constantly talk about godly things when we're around them. And I see it bearing fruit. And I wasn't really aware that it was doing anything.
Excellent. So even if you don't see it necessarily getting to completion short term, there's still long-term benefits of reaching out and taking that risk. Go ahead, Cindy.
Well, and then even in that part, he has come around to where his son was baptized in the river, and he was so proud and sent us the video, and
Excellent.
So he's seeing it now through his kids.
Excellent. It's good to, that's encouraging to see those things in the, taking shape, the hope and the effort that you put in the prior times.
And I think that the kids even can mentor in a way by their actions, even to the
So it can go the other way, where the younger one is teaching the older of here's what I see, it seems, that we're supposed to be doing. Good point. All right. So in Titus, I was there and went back over to Titus chapter 1 and verse 5, where it talks about the qualification of elders. And I was going to take a journey into that for a second, because we've had a person be nominated to be considered as an elder, and that person had said that they have an interest in serving. And so in the next bit of time, we're going to be calling, and Randy and I are going to be talking to each of you and saying, here's this person who has an interest. What do you think? And I'll probably bring that up right at the end so we don't get sidetracked on who yet. I want to look at what is this person being considered for.